Hey guys, and welcome to On the Rise. I have Cherie here with me, and I also have a former UFC fighter, Charles McCarthy.
How are you?
Hey, Lucas Rosa, and LJ Wilson. How you guys doing?
Good, good. How's everything?
I can't complain. We're in this new studio. It's nice and bright, and yeah. How you doing?
I'm very good. I'm happy to be here. This is my coach. These are my teammates, so I'm a little excited for this interview. They're some of my favorite fighters by far.
Oh, thanks.
I want to jump right in and ask you, Coach, what is something that you really pay attention to when you're developing fighters like LJ, Lucas, Philippe, Toledo? We have all these awesome fighters on our team.
It varies from the fighter, you know, like that's an interesting question. So when LJ came into me, he came into me with some background. He had been training boxing with John David Jackson's multiple-time boxing world champion.
Wow.
And he already had pretty good boxing, and he had some wrestling experience. His father was his wrestling coach growing up. And LJ was a football player in college, so he was a good athlete already. So I had like a good starting point with him. So with him, the development was primarily on getting his wrestling sharper and getting his jiu-jitsu good and adding the kickboxing range to his striking game, because his striking game was built on boxing, which is an amazing martial art, but if you only ever train boxing, then you're going to have bad habits for MMA. So we had to change some of those bad habits, readjust his distance, get him used to the idea that he could hit somebody with his leg instead of just his hands, and using his elbows and his knees. And he took to it real well, and we tried to maximize his athleticism, as opposed to a lot of times a guy like LJ will walk into a jiu-jitsu gym and they want to throw a gi on him and slow him down and take away his athleticism to teach him to be technical. And we focus a lot on maximizing their athleticism while also teaching them to be technical. So that was like LJ's blueprint.
Wow.
And then Lucas came to me he was a state champion wrestler. He had spent time in Thailand doing kickboxing before. And so he'd spent time in Holland working with one of the coaches that we have out there, Stefan Berkenpass.
Wow.
So he had like an interesting background. His brother was a UFC fighter. He trained some jiu-jitsu. And so for Lucas, it was taking a lot of these individual skills that he had learned and really like turning it into a mixed martial arts game, and then fine-tuning those skills. So like a lot of times guys learn jiu-jitsu that's like beautiful jiu-jitsu but terrible for MMA.
Right.
But they learn it from amazing world-class jiu-jitsu guys, and you go, well, why would that world-class jiu-jitsu guy teach them something that's not good? And you go, well, it's great, but it's great depending on what rules are you competing under. And if you're competing under MMA rules, then 90% of wrestling, jiu-jitsu are gone out the window. Like they don't work or they're not effective. And then the strategies on when you use those techniques become very important, like the timing of when would you decide to wrestle versus jiu-jitsu versus strike. And so a lot of the development is teaching these guys that new language of MMA, how the distances work, how the martial arts merge and meet each other, the appropriate time to make what decisions, things of that nature.
So, and do you feel like that so it's basically a hybrid MMA compared to when back in the day when you started, and like you mentioned to me earlier that you said you really didn't have too much amateurs, just went straight to pro. Mm-hmm. So do you feel like one of your main goals as a coach is to stay progressively learning and staying with the times of whatever kind of new techniques are coming out?
Yeah, absolutely. When I first started fighting, we called it MMA, but it was like they had just started calling it MMA. Before that, it was no holds barred, you know. And the reason why they called it MMA is because they go, well, we're not just like street fighters or different martial arts, and they're meeting to see who's the best. But the concept still hadn't been developed that we're all going to be training the same. It was we're all training different, and we're going to prove which one of these is the best. It was a very narrow-minded way of thinking. Mm-hmm. And as everything evolved, a lot of people still stayed in that train of thought. But I think the better trainers, they looked at it from an overview and they said, well, in enough time, everyone will have picked out the best things of all these martial arts that are effective in this competition format, and they'll be training these things as its own system, which is essentially what I believe we have now. Right. There's little bits of different formula that you'll see from gym to gym, But most of the main gyms, they're teaching this mixed martial arts formula, which is a blend of all these different martial arts, and maybe you teach them compartmentalized, but you teach them with the concept of when you do this, you need to be aware that you could get punched from here. When you go for here, you need to be aware that there could be a knee there. You could be taken down if you do that technique. So once you start incorporating all those things, you get really like a whole new competition. Like if you watch fights now versus what it used to look like when Hoist Gracie was originally fighting, they're like, it looks like different sports,
Right.
you know? And I think we're only just tapping into that. I think we're at the beginning, the precipice of all of that, where it's going to go. I think we're going to end up with, like, I can imagine these guys, they're going to have their own gyms one day, and they're going to be training guys based on things they learn. But what are they learning? They've got an Olympic wrestling coach, world champion kickboxing coach, world champion jiu-jitsu coaches. But those guys were all champions at those one arts.
Right.
These guys are now going to be MMA champions that worked with all those guys, and they're going to be developing a whole new evolution of that sport. And the guys are going to be so much, who knows what techniques they're going to be doing, but I guarantee you I see new jiu-jitsu techniques every day. To answer your question, every day I study new stuff and I learn something new every day. So if I've been doing this since 99, and I've been doing it every day, and every single day I've learned something new, and I study a lot, I imagine that we're not even close to how far this is going to go. Because it's going to become exponential once all these different people are all training different stuff and combining and sharing knowledge. Like, YouTube didn't really exist before, right? And before YouTube, nobody was sharing this information. I was watching all this like on bootleg videotapes.
VHSs, yeah.
And you had to like trade them and share them with your friends.
Right.
But now I can send Lucas like a technique that I thought was cool, and he can start training it that day.
Exactly.
It's like a whole different ball game now.
Yeah, it's gonna, God willing, if they do make the Olympics for MMA, you know, Olympic style training, you know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting if that happens. It'll definitely change. It'll change the sport again. It'll segment it in a way that'll make it for the rules that whatever the rules of the Olympics are going to be, which I guarantee you won't be exactly what we have now.
Of course.
And every different, like when I train guys for pro versus amateurs, there's little differences, you know, like you don't train a guy for elbows, for instance, you know, and that matters, you know, it matters. So these guys, I think they mostly train like pros for the idea that they're going to be pros. But if you had guys that were training specifically for the Olympics, because that's a big deal, right? Like to get sponsors, maybe get on a Wheaties box or something, would be amazing. Guys would dedicate their whole lives to that, and I think it would change a little bit how they train for the sport, like you see in boxing. Amateur boxing and professional boxing is way different sports,
right?
Way different, which is good though. It's good. It's nice for guys. Nice for guys to have avenues to build up their brand and their name in one thing that's a little bit more easy to digest for the average person, and then become a professional and then go into like, you know, stardom because you've built up a brand already.
Right, and same thing with pay. You know, like obviously boxing pay is crazy, and MMA pay is going to slowly go up as well. So
it's going slow. It's going
slow. It's a very slow process.
It's crawl, I'd say. At best. When I would say the good thing is when I first started fighting in UFC, the base pay was $2,000 and $2,000, and the base pay now in UFC I think is $12 and $12. So it's going up.
That's still very low.
It's like it's comically low. Like you could fight 3 fights in the UFC that year, all of them be on TV, and walk away making like in the 30,000 range for the year. You know, like it's pretty bad. So I'd like to see that change. I think that the change will happen, but I don't know that it's going to happen gradually. I think something big and abrupt is going to have to happen, and then. And I think it's happening. I think people are starting to see it. You see it with like Francis, like
Jake Paul's fighter union.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about that.
Well, he bought a little bit of the UFC and he said he's going to start a union. Made a YouTube song about Dana White.
Those are the kind of things that create that type of change.
Right.
And I say that as a business owner, that I go, well, I wouldn't want like to have to deal with a union to deal with my employees. It would be a fucking nightmare. Excuse my language, but so I get it. I could see why the UFC definitely wouldn't want that. It wouldn't be beneficial to the UFC at all in the short term, but maybe in the long term it would, when people are not making that joke anymore about how shitty these guys get paid, and instead they're talking about the great paydays of the UFC fighters. I think that could be really beneficial to the level of athletes that you could draw to the sport.
Makes
Like
sense.
we're just seeing now, like high-level athletes come to the sport. Imagine if there was like, if it was known, like you go to UFC, you're going to make millions. Like you'd get all the best athletes.
Right.
Right now, like I deal with like NFL players and professional boxers and guys in other sports, and it's like a joke, like to them what professional fighters are making. So I would love to see that make a change. I feel like it's going to take a lot of the established guys to take a stand for everybody and say, yeah, it's great that the UFC pays me a couple $1 million, but I'm actually worth even more than that. And if I take a stand and these guys take a stand and we say we're not fighting for this anymore, it could make a difference. It's tough because of the way the contracts are negotiated, and these guys don't have the ability to sit out for 2 years, which is basically what they'd have to do to be able to do that. So it's a challenge. You're dealing with guys that have short career spans. They don't want to take a stand because they don't have the time to wait out. And then you've got a big corporation that has all the time in the world to wait you out. The lawyers, the money, the finances to do it.
Right.
And I say that not as a knock against the UFC or any organization. It's just the realities of business, right? Like you've got interest as a business owner, you've got different interests as a fighter. A fighter's its own business, and they have their own interests. Sometimes they align exactly, and sometimes they don't.
And they're independent contractors.
Yeah, and it's just the realities of it. And fighters should revel in that possibility of being an independent contractor. That's a lot of value. That means they could go anywhere they want, but then they need to go negotiate their contracts properly. And if they're a top fighter, like you say, a guy like John Jones and Francis, and they wanted to fight each other, and they're arguing over the money, this, that, like Armando could put that show on, and each one of those guys could make $30 million, and everyone would make money.
Exactly.
Like if you had those two guys, you could make a ton of money with that, right? Like who couldn't make money with those guys? So the money is going to get generated if those two guys fight, and they go. If Jones goes to Francis and goes, "Hey Francis, let's just sit out, and then we'll go fight on our own show, and we'll hire a promoter to help us put it on, or HBO or Showtime, and we'll guarantee ourselves $30 million paydays." And then once they do that and other people saw what they did, they go, "Oh man, that's the move. Like, why am I not doing that?" Because it seems so foreign when you see boxers do it.
Right.
Because these guys aren't in boxing gyms and training with boxers, and they don't. It's like seems foreign. And then Jake Paul, he's kind of like a crossover guy, where it's starting. He's talking to the MMA guys. He's not just talking to boxers. So, and the boxers don't even really accept him. So the MMA guys, they kind of see him and they go, "This guy's kind of working for us a little bit. Like he's bringing up the MMA guys' values, paying the guys. He wants us to get paid." And I think they're starting to see like, man, you can just put on your own shows. There's no need to, if you're a top fighter in the world, to have to sign your life away to any one organization. If you do, then you should definitely get paid accordingly for it. And if you're getting paid great for it, then great. Like if you're getting paid an amazing amount of money to fight, then more power to you. But if you're getting underpaid, then you need to talk to other guys that are getting underpaid, and you guys need to take a stand and put together an avenue. And it's a great opportunity also for places like Showtime and HBO, and Don King and all these other promoters in boxing, and Bob Arum, to come in and go, "I'll take John Jones and Francis and give them $30 million a piece and put on," and they're all of a sudden they're in the MMA game.
Right.
Those opportunities are coming, and that's what's going to make the change. It won't be like because the organization goes, "Man, we feel like tripling pay." That's just not going to happen. It'll slowly go up a little bit until something big happens. My opinion, anyways.
That makes sense. I appreciate that.
That's a really insightful opinion, I think, that not a lot of people have seen, because you were at the UFC from practically the beginning.
Oh,
right?
you're making me feel old.
No, but it's an impressive amount of time that you've spent in the field, is what I'm trying to
I
say.
appreciate that.
So
Yeah,
you
I look at other guys though, like as
Yeah.
the seniors, but I did get to see a lot of changes go through UFC. Like I talked to Mikey Burnett, who I was in Ultimate Fighter House with, and he's a guy that was there at the beginning,
Okay.
and he was fighting for like $600. Like,
That's
and he was
wild.
in a UFC
That's
video game. They paid
wild.
him no money, and he's fighting for $600.
Right.
And but it's like it's crazy, right?
They're like, no.
Well, that's the reality of it. Like, people are in the UFC game right now and they don't get paid for it. And you could say back in the day, like they bought UFC for $3 million. Like the UFC was almost bankrupt. It wasn't making money. They were $40 million in the hole. Like, yeah, all right, I'll do the video game and you don't have to pay me just so I can get my name out there. Like, I'll
Right.
take that exposure. But now, like, it's $1 billion business. Like, the video game's $1 billion business. The show is like.
I think the Ultimate Fighter saved helped the UFC for sure.
Yeah, definitely. There's that appetite in America for fighting. There
Yeah.
always has been. It's a country that's built on war and violence, and that's what established us, and that's what keeps our whole world safe as far as Americans are concerned. So we have a huge appetite for that. I think you see that through all of our sports, right? So it really became, how do you show the world what we've been doing, because nobody really had been exposed to it. Like the only exposure they got was negative press from like the beer advertisers who were heavily sponsored in boxing, and they were like calling it the human cockfighting. And at the same time, the early UFC guys, they were just big marketers. They weren't really trying to build a sport, so they were calling it human cockfighting. And so, there was no opportunity back then like there is now. But that's going to change, dude. This is like just the beginning of it. America loves fighting. The whole world now has gotten exposed to it. It's like the fastest growing sport in the world. And it's even branching off other sports like bare knuckle boxing and
Right.
other cool.
I mean, just my opinion of it, I think part of it is also like, it's sort of a pursuit of knowledge as much as anything else. I think a lot of people are drawn to it because it's sort of like a expression of self, like in the highest way. I think a lot of other people have like maybe, painting or, songwriting or writing, and for us, this is the way that we express ourselves and express ourselves authentically. This is the way we, blow off steam and do things in a way that this is art to us. And I think like it's that pursuit of knowledge and that pursuit of being able to be authentic in front of a crowd or in front of our friends, and that draws us to this practice. To me, it's like a discipline,
That's beautiful.
Sick. And then also the gladiator factor, just I always think about Roman times and in the cage fighting lions, I just think it's, for me, I love MMA because it's just like, it's man versus man, your goals versus someone else's goals, someone's going to come out on top, and just, it's not a team, it's a team sport, don't get me wrong, as far as your coaches and your gyms, but it's you versus someone else, just willpower.
Well, right. I think like one of the things that attracted me most to it too is like you have to be, there's so many aspects of it that you need to understand. It's not like you're just a linebacker in football or something like that where you have one set of skills you need to perfect. You have to be the coach, the quarterback, the wide receiver, the defense, the offense. Everything has to run through you, and I think that's something that I think can overwhelm a lot of people. There were like football players who used to come try to train MMA with me and stuff, and they'd be sort of overwhelmed by that spotlight aspect of it. But to me, that's like one of the things that I think attracts me to it. Like I see a lot of the same virtues and traits that attract me to philosophy are the same ones that are consistent and attract me to mixed martial arts.
What would a synopsis of those traits be? Like if you could choose 5.
Yeah, I'd say like the biggest one, I'd say like creativity, as well as, just the pursuit of knowledge. To me, that's really what philosophy is, and I find it to be a similar thing in MMA. Like obviously I think, there's a different, it looks a lot different, but I think to me, martial arts is just the physical aspect, while philosophy is more like abstract. I'm not obviously out there studying metaphysics when I'm doing or thinking about metaphysics when I'm like training, but to me, it's just the physical form of philosophy manifested.
That's super sick.
Sick.
That's so cool.
Hard one.
I love it.
Metaphysics, synopsis, I got a lot of words to look up tonight,
I tried to read a manuscript on metaphysics that my colleague wrote. I still have not gotten through the first 10 pages. It's so insanely.
Well, metaphysics.
That's what I'm saying. Thank you.
A lot of it's the study of like just abstract things like meaning, like what is meaning, what's like things like death, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super esoteric. It's spiritual. It's like.
I like that.
LJ.
Back to fighting.
Esoteric, you know?
LJ, what do you
I know that.
into fighting? What made you go, yeah, this is what I want to do?
Honestly,
And don't get philosophy.
right. I was like, I'm no,
You gotta keep it under 6 letters, you know?
I'm
Dumb
no
it down.
philosopher. So it's a little more simpler, you know, my journey to MMA.
But I've seen you
Honestly,
fight with
Huh.
Lucas, so I know you might not be a philosopher, but you're definitely a fighter. You guys go, I mean, that is a battle every time, I think. A controlled
No,
battle, but
Lucas is
battle.
like my #1 training partner. This is my guy. Like he's been here from the beginning, but we've all know that. Honestly, I feel like I was meant to do this. You know, I started training like in wrestling at a very young age, and aspect of like that one-on-one competition, mano y mano. But I'm just, it's just one of those things. Like I don't even like I put it up. You know, you celebrate and then you get back to work because you can only progress if you keep going. You know, if I sit there and stare at this belt all day and think, oh, I won a title, I won this my first amateur title. Like I don't even think about that. You know, and it's a lot of attention, all that stuff come with it. But I'm just keep my head down and keep getting better because I won't get any more titles if I just stay where I am. You know what I mean?
Makes sense.
I think that's an interesting aspect about you. I remember asking you, you know, hey, how are you? Since the beginning of like when we were at the gym on 18th, and I would ask you, what are you working on today, or what do you want to train today? And you would always, and even today, I ask you the same question, kind of, and you always say, I just want to get better.
Yeah.
That's almost always your mentality every single time I've talked to you for like years. That's a very interesting philosophy for someone that's gonna be a UFC fighter someday.
Yeah, I hope so. You know, God's willing, we can get to the highest level. But yeah, that's really my mentality. It's been working for me so far. You know, I got great people around me. Like, you know, the gym is. I mean, that's the only reason why I'm here. You know, that's all I have. It's all I work for. It's the whole reason why I'm existing now. It's just to get up, go to that gym, put in the work, and punch out. You know, all the other jobs that you may do. That it's just kind of like what I'm doing for now. But this is what I want to do for life. So I'm gonna just keep working and becoming a better martial artist every day.
And after after the first title win that you have, do you feel that you progressively got better than the previous fight?
100%. 100%. You know, I showed when you know, if I could get touched up a little bit, you can come back like I was in a fight. You know, I love that feeling of, you know, a little adversity because it always feels better when you come out on top. You know what I mean? If it was just like a cakewalk, you know, everybody'd be like, oh, what is he doing? But, you know, a little adversity it's entertainment for the crowd. You know, people pay attention to you, and to see you rise, you know, that's what people want to see, you know.
On the rise.
On the rise.
And with that, we're going to take a quick break. Thank you so much to our sponsors for this show, Pharmacana, and we had the auto sponsor. DV8 Auto, and we'll be right back with you guys.
This is Kerry from DV8 Motorsports. I want to welcome you to our world and give you a little insight into what we do. From the lift kits, lowering kits, custom wheels and tires, gas, diesel, performance, and accessories. We do it all here in-house. All of our services we offer, we install everything. Come follow us on social media, Facebook or Instagram, deviate_motorsports. Take a look at what we do, what we have to offer. We're located at 1018 North Federal Highway in Lake Park, US 1, just south of North Lake Boulevard, or you can give us a call at 561-840-2023 or shoot us an email, deviatemotorsports@yahoo.com. Thanks.
Jason, the article. Oh! Are excited and ready for the second bout of RIZE.
This is Kerry from DV8 Motorsports. I want to welcome you to our world and give you a little insight into what we do. From the lift kits, lowering kits, custom wheels and tires, gas, diesel, performance, and accessories. We do it all here in-house. All of our services we offer, we install everything. Come follow us on social media, Facebook or Instagram, deviate_motorsports. Take a look at what we do, what we have to offer. We're located at 1018 North Federal Highway in Lake Park, US 1, just south of North Lake Boulevard, or you can give us a call, 561-840-2023, or shoot us an email, deviatemotorsports@yahoo.com. Thanks.
And we're back. So Lucas, 4 MMA fights, a few kickboxing fights. How do you feel about RIZE?
Oh, I feel awesome about RIZE. I think it's like really important that we have such a like great MMA scene down here. This is kind of like a mecca of MMA here in Lake California. I'd say the best places in the world, and RIZE I think is a huge reflection of that. So
appreciate that. Yeah, every time we know Lucas is going to be on the card, it's like a guarantee. Like if there's a show, there's Lucas. It seems like you're always willing and ready.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like everything. Sometimes people ask me like, "Oh, what's your favorite win or whatever?" And my answer is always the next one. Like I think about literally like every day. That's all I think about. I have like above on my ceiling wall, I have like taped up there amateur record, like 5-0 RIZE, so that's like what I look at every day when I wake up, kind of for motivation. Yeah, so yeah, no, it's like, well, to me sometimes, like motivation is great, but sometimes it has to be discipline too. Like today, I woke up and was like, oh man, I have to go to Choplin's Muay Thai class and Waggy's wrestling class. Like I didn't really want to go, but you look at that and I'm like, all right, that's my goal. So yeah, exactly, yeah.
And I'd say one of the toughest things for amateurs, which we were talking about financials earlier, is the no pay. Like now that college football has a pay, so you guys take the chance of possibly seriously hurting yourself in some form or fashion, going against people that are fully capable of doing that. So it's a credit to you guys that you're able to go back to the gym, and gym memberships aren't free either. You guys really got to work an actual job or participate with the gym to be able to accommodate for that.
Yeah,
so
you guys are both working.
That's what I'm saying. It's not an easy task. No one's just really paying your way. So I think I give you guys a lot of credit for that as well.
Yeah, a lot of discipline, right?
A lot of discipline. So you don't live at your mom and dad's house, and you're just out on the couch.
Well, and these guys especially, you mentioned that they both moved here from like other states to change their whole way of living, their whole walk of life to be able to pursue this, and it's very hard to. Florida's like very expensive, especially where we are in Florida, to be able to come and do that. I think about it all the time. I talk about that with my fiance, and we're like, it just blows my mind the level of commitment that these guys are willing to put in.
Right.
For to be able to do something that feels truly amazing, like to live your passion and chase your dream, which the one thing I always try to impart on the guys, because maybe the money's not great right now, and it's going to hopefully get better. If you become one of the best in the world, you can definitely make your millions, but like there's only a couple guys who are going to make that. Hopefully it'll be some of these guys, but the really beautiful way to look about it is you train every day and every night to get better at something you love, so that one day you get to go in front of a whole bunch of people and have the light shine on you, so everyone can watch you do your artwork live,
right,
to make your beautiful masterpiece live, and people are going to pay you money for that, and people are going to save all week, work shitty jobs all week, slave away all week, so they can save up their money to come and watch you work.
Right.
And there's a valuable part of that in society when you're one of those people that get to provide that for everybody. You're that outlet of entertainment, or that outlet of motivation or inspiration for the world. I think that's, sometimes there's some things that are worth more than money.
Right. And like you said, positive influences and role models, pretty much. And a lot of people have never actually trained MMA or done different things. It's terrifying. Like you were talking about earlier, like I've cornered a gentleman on a pro fight, and I was terrified holding the bucket. You know what I mean? I'm shaking.
I felt that before, believe it or not. I've been in the corner, like feeling like way worse nerves than I've ever felt for any of my fights.
Right.
Yeah, because you feel like you want something so bad, and you feel so helpless.
Exactly.
Talk about giving a show. Somebody who always brings a show to RIZE is LJ. LJ, can you go over how, I've seen your fights, a couple fights now for about 2 years-ish, and you really are always terrifying. Like, I don't think anybody ever goes. nobody goes into a fight with LJ going, oh, this is going to be, you know, an easy fight. So how do you feel about the fights that you've had at RIZE? How do you feel as RIZE is a platform for you as an amateur fighter to grow yourself and become the fighter? Because you're always getting better. That's definitely your drive. So how has that played out in your fights over the time with RIZE?
Oh, well, no RIZE, no fights. So I'm extremely thankful for these guys, let me fight on their show. Charles giving me the opportunity, it's just, like I said, I'm extremely thankful. I wouldn't say I'm no terrifying monster guy.
When you're fighting, and you are like really picking up these guys and slamming over your head. Do you plan on doing that in the fights?
No.
Because I know we generally don't train those things.
It's just instinct thing. Like I've been kind of embedded in like the grappling aspect of it for, a long time. So it's just, I've probably done that to a numerous amount of people over the years. But
And you're not terrifying. So
I call it the tower at LJ, or like just like the Disney World ride when it drops down,
Even people that knew LJ were scared of him at the gym after that.
We're cool, right?
I'm not for doing more wrestling with him today.
Well, and he did that again last fight. He slammed
Yeah.
that guy the same way. Thankfully, that guy survived,
multiple takedowns, multiple rounds.
Yeah.
From
People don't know that about LJ. They think he's a striker. They don't know that how good he can wrestle.
like what do they call it, an air carrier? Like you have your own line.
I don't know. Y'all being too nice to me. Y'all being too nice to me. But yeah, it's just a testament of the years of training, and all the hard work I put in now.
What does it feel like to prepare for a RIZE fight, specifically like the back room, all that stuff for RIZE? What do you feel like that?
Oh, by that time I'm so locked in. We could be in the middle of 95 and I'm ready to go. You know what I mean? Like it's just a moment to get to the cage. I'm living moment to moment till you get to the cage.
What kind of music do you usually like?
It don't matter.
Your walkout song? You don't pick that?
I haven't picked a walkout song since I've.
That's really interesting.
It don't matter what's playing on the radio.
That's super interesting.
It could be.
You know Rory McDonald's story on the walkout song? Supposedly?
No.
Supposedly Rory McDonald, that Dana White or somebody, whoever was picking the walkout songs for UFC that will call and verify, they had the wrong number for Rory McDonald. So they've been calling for years some random guy, like texting him, and the guy would text back like some goofy song.
Oh my God.
It would be the song they played, and they asked Rory about the songs. He goes, I don't know, I don't pick these songs. And then they found out, like, they've been asking someone who'd been posing as Rory McDonald.
Wow.
That's hilarious. I've never heard of that.
You gotta go back and watch what songs he did. For
Right, now I'm going to now.
We need to get one of those people for LJ.
Yeah.
That song figure. Apparently they have one. You gotta ask Armando who's doing that for him.
Picking your songs.
Somebody is.
The DJ, the DJ. But no, it's songs and all of that stuff. It don't matter to me. Anybody could be playing. Britney Spears could be playing. I'm still get in there and do what I gotta do.
It's Yanni on.
Right. It don't matter.
So you ready for April?
Oh yeah. I'll be ready to go. God's willing, barring no crazy injuries, nothing like that. Yeah, I'll be ready.
Sick.
For sure.
Awesome.
Who would be your dream fight someday? Who would you love to fight?
Good question.
I've never thought about that. Wow. Dream fight?
Yeah. Even if the person is already done fighting, like any fighter in the history
Who's your
of fighting.
favorite fighter in your weight class?
Favorite fighter in my weight class? Lightweight. I mean, you gotta probably give it up to Habib. I mean, that dude was so dominant. I don't think anyone's ever like.
That's not a guy you'd want to fight, though. That would suck.
I mean, it's two different questions. That's two different questions. That was two different questions. No, I don't know how many guys would want to fight a guy that they modeled themselves out of. It'd be, shoot, especially now.
Yeah, he's a great fighter. A lot of people were not volunteering to fight him.
No, even as an active pro, they weren't. So, but his style, that's just that dominant presence that he had when he stepped in there. Like his style was kind of like it was like an aggressive pressure, but at the same time his technique, like I feel like a lot of people don't talk about this dude's technique. It's like having aggression, good technique, great technique, and then just like that, I don't know, that will to win. You know what I mean? Like it was like embedded in him at a very young age. You know, so you could tell like once he got in there, he was home. He knew exactly what he had to do. So that's a guy I could say I would look forward to him fighting, but he said he's retired now. So
There's Islam.
yeah, another guy like that whole culture over
Yes.
there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're for real. They're for real.
Mountain guys, you know?
Yeah, they're for real.
Yeah, I was listening to Bobby Green talk about fighting Islam, and he's like, that guy was so calculated, and he moved inch for inch, and everything was no wasted energy. And he's like, that was the strongest guy I've ever encountered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can tell they do that every day.
Right.
They do that every day.
Sick. And what about you, Lucas? Who's your dream matchup?
Charles Rosa. No, I'm just joking. I was joking. Yeah. That's right. We've had a few bouts, you know. I'm just joking, Charles.
Your brother, like you're both fighters. You're both, and do you have more brothers? Are they also fighters, or is it you?
Yeah. I have an identical twin, actually, Francis. So yeah, I mean, actually, like I'd say I kind of started more with like, and I had two older brothers as well who unfortunately passed, but they used to kind of, when I was little, like, you know, mess around with us on the trampoline and stuff, and like me and my twin brother would play Godzilla with each other and like attack each other, and so I think that's kind of probably where it all started. And you know, Charles would obviously like, you know, make us tough and that sort of thing. We were a pretty tough family, like even my sister Teresa and stuff. So yeah.
What's your sister
Charles
like?
told me he used to make them fight like for his own entertainment.
I believe that. Actually.
Yeah. They'd honestly sometimes like, you know, he'd like, you know, push one of us and like point to them and be like, oh, he pushed you, and we'd both like attack each other like Godzilla monsters or something. But
So you had a keyword too or something, right?
oh yeah, no. So he had this one word that he said that if he said it, I would just go like attack, and it was called as apush. And so sometimes like before fights, he'll be like, hey Lucas, apush, and I was like, all right, I'm heading into the cage.
Is that a made up word?
Yeah, I know. I don't know what it might be from. I don't even know. It might be from Mortal Kombat or something, but I don't even know where it's from.
What is that called? When like Pavlov effect.
Yeah.
Pavlov effect of fighting from Charles Rosa.
Yeah, it's like
to his little brother.
The vocabulary in this.
I'm saying, you guys gotta prep me for these words, and I go home and study these things before we get here.
Creative writing major like Lucas. So
Good. Nice.
Okay, we're on the same page, LJ. Don't worry.
So, what else do you guys look forward to in training? Like when you first get up in the morning and you know that you're going to go train, what do you look forward to training that day the most? Or do you have something that you like better than other things? Nothing?
That's a good question.
Pass it to me. Can you repeat that again? I'm sorry.
When you get up in the morning and you know that you're going to go to a training day, what do you look forward to training?
Which classes do you enjoy the most? What type of training?
I like the MMA class, because that's the class that, you get to see all your skills, you know what I mean? Like where you're getting better. I feel like for what, me and Lucas are doing, that may be the most, I'm not going to say not one class is more important than the other. That's stupid to say, because everything is important. But that might be the one that you could really like evaluate yourself. Like when you go home and look in the mirror, like, dang, where was I in the cage? Did I know where, my foot was, far away from the fence? Like, am I beating them to the center? If I'm working on, switching stance, am I doing that well? Am I keeping this guy on the cage? You know what I mean? It's a more realistic for the fight feel, but I'd say all aspects of MMA is just, I look forward to, everything about fighting and the combat I love. So I can't really put one over the other.
That's a fair answer.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say like in terms of the different classes or disciplines, like I'd say I like jiu-jitsu the most out of anyone. Like training wise, I know I'd probably more advanced in wrestling and that kind of thing. Wrestling is great. Like I love, like having those classes and the people in it, of course, all my teammates, but like wrestling can be a real grind sometimes. So that's not always like the most fun one to do. But so I'd say probably jiu-jitsu is the one I'd most look forward to. But, I know that like striking is one of the things that I'm like really looking to improve on. So I've been really heavily focused on that a lot.
Sick. And as far as timelines to be amateurs, like both of you guys are pretty elite. But I guess as we bring it to coach, what do you think? Do you think you go by years or fights, or like do you think when they're ready, that's when you'll switch to the next gear?
There's a couple factors, a couple variables that play. One I think of is the age and the miles on the fighter. So like the age is one factor, but also the miles. Like, did they wrestle like their whole life? Did they kickbox their whole life? Are they just brand new to this? And then, and obviously, like, what their readiness level is. It's interesting is when you go pro, you can still kind of make their fights, hopefully, in a way that's beneficial for your guys if you're taking care of them properly. And so you could turn them pro earlier than you'd think they're ready, as long as you had the right match. That match could be easier than the last amateur fight they had, for instance. That said, I'd like, and also depends on the weight class too. In my mind, I like to turn the guys pro when I feel like if they got a last minute call to UFC, they could take it and they'd be ready. So that means I run my guys amateur probably longer than most, because they're usually very good pro level by the time I turn them pro. It also means when I turn them pro, they're not just like squeaking by wins, but they're smashing through their opponents and they're making a statement. And it pretty much locks in a guarantee that your guy's going to get to UFC level that way. So I guess the quick answer for that would be, like, for Lucas, probably looking at like the end of this year to go pro. LJ is probably on a similar timeline, maybe a little bit before that.
It's like,
they don't know that though.
they just had a realization. Like,
It's like, oh, crap. Yeah, no, I mean, I always just listen to whatever McCarthy says about that stuff. So
people ask me that all the time. I mean, family members, friends, like everybody. I get that question probably more than, "Hey, how you doing today?" And I always just tell them, like, I'm in good hands as far as, like, you know, like decision making like that. Like, I trust this guy with my career 100%. You know, nobody else. So whenever he says it's time to go, it's another fight. You know, it's another fight. So I'll be ready.
Like for the guys, like, my goal is that I'm building careers for guys. Like, these guys are coming to me as people that want to have a career in this industry, and my goal is to ensure them to have the best probability of being successful at that. So just putting a guy into a pro fight doesn't really give them a career. It just gives them a pro fight. And then if they lose that fight or they're unimpressive, the trajectory of their pro career is pretty dismal. But if you really make sure a guy is ready, because, like, if he goes and he has a couple pro fights and he makes $500 each pro fight, like, what kind of a career is that? It's garbage, you know.
Right.
You can fight 20 fights, never get to the next level, and always be making $500,000 a fight. Or you could take your time now yourself as the top amateur. Like, I think these guys are considered right now the top amateurs in Florida. Hopefully they'll be considered the top amateurs in the world soon. And then at that point, when they're ready to turn pro, they're going to rip through a couple fights in a way that's going to be so impressive that people are going to go, hey, we want to see this guy fight at the next level. And then that's where money starts coming in. That's where you really start having to test yourself. And if you do it in that way, then you should be good enough when you get there, and you'll be able to have a career fighting other guys at the top level. And the cream will rise to the top. Like, the best guys are going to rise to the top. There's a lot of variables. There's factors involved, like, you might be the best guy on this timeline, but there's a guy 2 weeks from now or a month from now that's going to break through, that's going to become the best guy, and you're never going to be the best guy again. Like, that guy now is better than you. And that happens. There's different level athletes all over the place. But if you can put a guy in that top, like, 5% of the fighters in the world, they're going to make money. They'll have a nice career, and hopefully, you know, essentially what you're doing is you're giving them lottery tickets in a very small pool lottery if you're doing it right. And hopefully one or two of those guys are going to get their lottery ticket punched, and they're going to make those $1 million paydays or several $1 million paydays. And if everything goes the way we all hope, guys who make it even to that top 5% will hopefully be looking at $1 million careers.
That's awesome. And, you know, it's kind of cool. I like that, you know, I mean, these guys are you know, kind of bred already. You know, you've guided them so far. But there's also other kind of fighters that you're rehabilitating their records, let's say, because they haven't had the proper coaching. And those guys are also pretty interesting too. Obviously, we don't have any here, but let's say a guy that's like 0-3 or 0-4 because they weren't properly coached. They might have talent, you know, crazy talent, but they weren't guided correctly. So do you take, like, do you enjoy also rehabbing their records to put them in the right direction?
I really enjoy helping people. Like whether I'm helping people learn jiu-jitsu or I'm helping them build their MMA record or follow their goals for their career, or I'm helping them learn how to use their leg again or whatever it is. Like I found that what makes me happiest is when I'm helping others do what they're trying to get done. And I've been able to build a career around that, thankfully. I was an agent for a long time. I managed Amanda Nunes, I had Walt Harris and Eric Anders and a bunch of other UFC fighters. And I brought all these guys to higher levels. And when you're a manager, you bring them higher levels by getting them better contracts or getting them deals that they were looking for. And I really enjoyed that. And as a trainer, I get to really enjoy it at a deeper level. And so I really try to put all these hats on that I've done in my career and be able to put together a development shop for these young athletes to be able to thrive, to reach their highest level of their potential. And everyone's potential is different. Mm-hmm. And I love all my kids equally. Some of them are going to go further than others. But I expect all of them to be able to go pretty far as long as you follow the plan. Like we've done this now with several generations of fighter. Had Cole Miller, we did 22 fights in UFC with, and his brother Micah was WEC fighter, and had Scott Harper, and brought up other guys like Charles, and now these guys. And there's a development plan that if you follow this plan, you're going to have success. And the more you deviate from that plan, the more variables you're going to introduce, and the more likelihood of not reaching your goal that you're going to have. And then that's how a lot of times you end up with these guys that are struggling, and you go, man, this guy's so good. How did he not get to that next level? And because they were always chasing that one hard fight to get them to the next level, as opposed to putting together a plan that takes time to calculate it and achieve over time.
That's awesome. Just like the gym, if you can't just jump in and bench 225, you got to work your way up.
Yeah, everything, it's time. And one of the things to take on what Lucas was talking about, I think that one of the things that really draws these guys to this sport, and maybe they don't even realize it, is the discipline. It feels really good to be disciplined in life. It feels really good to wake up every morning and have a plan and get better at something, to improve your life every single day. And it's not easy. It's the hardest thing in the world. It's so easy to just wake up and dick around all day. Mm-hmm. It's easy to wake up and do nothing. It's easy to sleep in. It's hard to do what they're doing, and you get a sense of self-worth from doing that. You build up your overall internal feeling of what your value is by doing that. And you're going in there and you're getting validation. You're going in there and you're training hard every day, and you're seeing yourself get better. You're seeing the accomplishments. You're seeing the achievements. You're getting the taps. You're getting the movement. You're getting the angles. The coach is telling you you're doing a good job, and you feel it. And all of these things, they really add up to adding a huge sense of self-worth to guys that a lot of times they come from a walk of life where they're not getting that level of reinforcement. And so I think discipline's a huge factor as to what makes guys want to do this and stick with it.
Coach, thank you so much for your perspective.
Thank you guys. Sorry, I talked over everyone too much.
I think that's something that hasn't been said much in any interviews that I've heard, but I think that's huge, at least for me as somebody who likes jiu-jitsu, who likes martial arts. The thing that I was craving all those years that I couldn't get in work, I couldn't get in family life, I couldn't get in school, it was that discipline that was real. Because some people are naturally gifted and they can kind of coast through a lot of situations, but fighting jiu-jitsu, MMA, it takes you really being 100% every day in the learning process, listening to your coach, listening to your teammates when you're training with them. It is a discipline and it is a challenge, and it's a big part of MMA, and I think why certain people stick with it, because they do crave that discipline. Like there's something that it brings to us that not a lot of other things can.
Yeah, it feels good.
Feels amazing.
Good.
And it translates to every other part of your life.
And that's honestly why I love MMA, because you take all that discipline and years of discipline and working, it all comes to, for amateurs, 9 minutes, just 9 minutes to show all that, so, I mean, and then the spotlight's on you, so that's why it's the best sport, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love that. It's such an adrenaline rush. That's a great way to put it. These guys are working, they're working right now. They worked all morning, they're going to be working every day, and then everyone's going to see everything they worked at for 9 minutes, right? Like that's their moment to shine, and it's a really cool feeling, which is why you got so stressed in the corner, right? Because you know all the work that's going into it.
Yep.
Like that's what gets me so much anxiety, and I'm go, man, I really love Lucas. Like I want the world for him, and then he's worked so hard for this. I hope everything goes good. Like that's that feeling that you fall in love with these fighters. Like even when you're watching as a fan, you go, oh man, LJ, like I cheer for him, and he comes back from behind, and that guy grinds and he works hard, and I can relate to him, and that's the type of stuff that really makes MMA feel so good. And you get these special moments where you're just like jumping out of your seat.
And McGregor versus Aldo in 14 seconds. I remember that. I'm like, oh, what just happened? You know what I mean? Like, oh.
Those are special moments in your life that you generally don't get a lot of.
Right.
You know, so when you get that so much in MMA, it's like constant adrenaline spike. If you're somebody that lives for adrenaline, MMA is your sport.
So on that note, the April fight is what date?
Friday.
Friday, April
15th?
15th.
April 15th.
We'll see LJ for sure. We'll see Lucas soon. Coach McCarthy, we'll see you in all the corners.
I'll be there.
I'm actually going to do a super fight with you, man.
Oh, me and you?
Me and you. No.
All right, you guys heard it.
I heard
Me and Armando,
Armando,
April 15th.
I'll pay for that.
I talk with Charles Rosa a lot about different like business ideas that we think of in the space. So Charles had this one idea. We could do this. He wants to. Thing, yeah.
0-5 to 2-5.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah.
No, good for him.
It's great.
Well, thank you guys for coming. Do you want to close us out?
You good?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, yet again, we appreciate you guys for coming. LJ, Charles, Lucas, thank you so much. Do you guys want to give any shout outs real quick while you're here?
I'll just give a shout out to Chucky's Fight. It's a charity my family has to help combat substance abuse in New England area, and then also shout out to all my teammates at ACG and just these two guys here. I don't know if a lot of people know the story here, but these two were kind of the reason ACG was started and stuff. So it's just amazing the journey we've had with them. So
we'll have to come tell that story one day.
Yeah, for sure.
And shout out to everyone at the gym. You know, we have a family. You know, I'm looking at this. We have a family there. You know, I've never had a bad day in the gym. Not far as training, because we take our licks sometimes. But I mean, just the energy in there. It's never been off, not one time. And we've been in a few different buildings. You know what I mean? But that family aspect, that feeling that you get in there, everybody's pushing each other. There's no one talking bad about each other. You know what I mean? You don't have that in our gym. So it's shout out to everybody at ACG. I love everyone there.
That's a McCarthy special right there.
100%.
Make me cry.
I don't want to do that. I want to do that.
Awesome. I also want to give a shout out to Mega TV for having us on here. This is a beautiful set. Hopefully we'll come back.
Absolutely.
And thank you to my partner as well. And I can't wait to see you guys compete.
Thank you.
Shout out to Coach.
Oh, of course, shout out to Coach,
Can we
the legend.
Can we do
Thank you very much for your
all the
support,
hands in?
You guys are funny. All right, let's go.
1, 2, 3, rise. 1, 2,
2,
3.
3, rise.
All right, I like
Thank you,
it.
man.
We'll see you guys on April 15th.
Yes, sir.
Sweet.